If we haven't met before, my name is Marie, I'm a sewist, and I'm currently living in this tower from the 16th century in the Italian countryside. To give you a little bit of context, 2 years ago, my partner and I bought a ruin in this area, and while we've been waiting to renovate it, we've been renting around here, and that means every time I have the fun challenge of turning wherever we're staying at into a temporary sewing studio so that I can work on my small slow fashion business. It's Saturday morning and I've actually been doing some admin all week, so I'm very excited to finally be sewing, and my plan is to make my very own sewing pattern that I just released this summer. It's called the drawstring crescent bag, and it's a 2-in-1 crossbody and shoulder bag. So it has this really cool strap design that you can gather like a scrunchie, and that way you can switch from crossbody to shoulder bag anytime you like. I worked on this pattern for about 6 months, and I'm so happy it's out and I'm so proud of it, so I'm always very excited to make a new version. And this time I'm gonna use this cotton gingham as my exterior fabric, and then this bed sheet with a botanical print as my lining. The first step to construct the bag is to create a zipper pocket in the lining, and I used to really dislike making zipper pockets because I was using the welt method, which basically makes you cut into your fabric to create an opening for the zipper, and it's really hard to get a clean finish with no puckers and no pulled stitches, and it's not super durable. So when I was creating this pattern, I made a lot of prototypes, and I eventually figured out my ideal recipe, which is to use zipper tabs to fully enclose the zipper. It makes the pockets so much cleaner, easier to construct, and much more durable. Even though I've made this bag many times now, I'm still following my own video tutorial and written instructions because they're really detailed, so I can completely switch off my brain and rely on them to do everything properly and not forget any of the steps.
Pin all layers together along the top edge.
I took a break for lunch, and I was very lucky because my friend Isabella, who is also staying with us, made us this delicious lemon and parmesan pasta. Back into my sewing studio, I decided to make some patches from the lining fabric because I wanted to have a little bit of the lining showing on the outside of the bag. So I cut a shape with a bit of seam allowance, and then I ran a gathering stitch around it and gathered the fabric around a piece of cardboard that was the size I wanted for my patch. I gave it a good press and then removed the cardboard. I'm just using a simple glue stick to hold it in place where I want to sew it because I find that it's so much more efficient than pins and really keeps the patch nice and flat. When I started sewing, I really wanted to use my machine for everything and I would never really pick up a hand sewing needle. But over time, I've really grown to enjoy it, either as a way to get a super clean, invisible finish on some steps, or actually as the opposite, to give a project a really nice handcrafted feel with visible stitches. That's why I decided to sew the patch on by hand with a blanket stitch. So while I'm doing that, I thought I would tell you a little bit more about the process of designing this pattern. It all started last year when I wanted to make something for my niece, and I found this pattern for a crossbody bag in the shape of a whale. She loved it, and I also loved it, so I made a second one for myself. It was actually my first time wearing a crossbody bag, and I loved how comfortable and secure it was, but the only issue was that it was a bit too small, and I couldn't carry a book or a water bottle, for example. So I decided to make some crossbody tote bags to combine the best aspects of crossbodies and tote bags. But after a while, I realized I kind of had the opposite problem. The crossbody tote bags were a bit too big and bulky. So one day I just put some pins into one of the crossbody tote bags I had made to turn it into a smaller crescent-shaped bag. I made a prototype and it was just perfect. It was the exact size I wanted, bigger than a crossbody, smaller than a tote bag. So I had the shape down, but I really wanted the strap to be adjustable. And at the same time, I didn't really want to use any hardware like sliders or buckles because I really liked the look of the bag with just fabric. So I decided to experiment with a few ideas and eventually I came to the drawstring mechanism. I thought about it very organically, just playing with my fabrics, but then I looked it up to see if it existed, and there are other bags using a similar design, but my challenge was to design the ideal construction so that it would be as easy as possible to sew, but with the best results. So the junction between the strap and the bag is super clean, there's no top stitching, no messy area, and it took me so long to get it right, but I'm really happy and really proud of the final construction. And that was actually just the beginning because then I worked on turning my paper pattern into a digital file, writing and designing the instruction booklet, drawing the technical illustrations, creating a glossary with all the sewing terms, filming and editing the video tutorial, and of course running a testing session so other sewists could give me some feedback. I was really lucky to have such an incredible group of testers who provided some super helpful and super supportive feedback. And then I was ready to launch, and there's been such an incredible response. It honestly means the world to see people make my design and have fun with it, and especially learn with it, because I really designed it as an educational pattern that teaches you not just how but also why you're doing everything, so that you can take that knowledge forward in your sewing journey. So anyways, I hadn't finished hand sewing the patch, but I had to take a break from sewing to do some more admin. I've just registered my small business in Italy, so there's been a lot to figure out. Another thing I did that was way more fun was to send a message on the Discord I created for my pattern. It's basically a sew-along group, so people can ask questions and share their progress. So I shared a photo of my zipper pocket, and at the end of the day, I went for a walk with Isabella. We sat in the field and I worked on hand sewing my patches while she practiced solving the Rubik's Cube, which we taught her how to do 2 weeks ago, and she's already solving super fast. On Sunday, I had a relaxing morning sewing 2 more patches to the other side of the bag while I caught up on Carly V's craft club. If you don't know Carly, she's one of my absolute favorite artists. She always shares the best insights on creativity and sewing, and she makes the coolest projects. And I've also made some sewing friends through her Patreon, so I'm a big fan and super grateful for these connections.
It remains very similar, but the flower has sort of evolved. And they're beautiful pieces of work with a rich story and a lot of meaning.
While I was doing that, Isabella and Givi went to pick up some veggies from a farm nearby.
You got a giant onion.
A giant onion and a very tiny, watermelon.
Seedless.
And there were smaller ones.
There was much smaller ones, but...
We made lunch and then I went back to my studio to work on sewing the bag. Once I was done, I went for a walk to enjoy the last moments of sun and so that I could show you the finished bag. I'm super happy with the result. I really love the little patches and I love that I can carry so much without the bag being too big. If you want to make your own drawstring crescent bag, you can get the pattern on my website. I would really love to see your own version. It's genuinely my absolute favorite part of having created this pattern, the fact that now it's there for anyone to make and choose their own fabric and add their own touches, fill it with their own essentials and just carry it on their own adventures. I'd love to know what creative projects you've got lined up this season, so feel free to let me know in the comments, and I'll see you next time.